Welcome back to Beyond the Pump. In today's episode, we are going to be chatting about how to know when to transition from your 9 to 5 into that truly professional full-time coaching role. We're super excited to get to talk things business, competency-wise, and everything in between during today's episode. So make sure you stay tuned because we have some great things to mention at the end. All right, gents, what do we got going on?
It's a Tuesday. We're hanging out. It's a nice day out. Sun's out. Good weather. Just it feels like an appropriate time of year to think about going from my 9 to 5 employment to going full-time coach. Just feels right. Feels right. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm okay. I don't know. I'm hoping it's just allergies, but I'm kind of feel like I've got something coming on.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Just take some extra vitamin C, like 2 grams 3 times a day, and you
Yeah,
will be fine.
that actually makes a lot of sense. I normally start my day with 8 ounces of orange juice, but I ran out and I haven't had time to go get some. So maybe that's really what's missing.
That's what's missing, 100%. I don't know if 2 grams 3 times a day is appropriate. I just threw out some random
You
numbers.
shit your pants, dude.
Just throwing that out there. So
I was gonna let it ride until you gave me that in. I was like, that sounds like a
well,
lot, bro. That's
I have
GI
no
up
idea.
that.
No, I mean, I have 2 grams. I have 1 gram every morning in my shake.
Of caffeine. Yeah.
No, of vitamin C.
God.
I'm riding no caffeine today. No caffeine. Or
Just taking a
yesterday
hard right
either.
turn.
So, but anyways, so transitioning from a 9 to 5 to a full-time coach. I think context probably matters here. So maybe setting the stage on some specifics here, but it sounds as though we're breaking down the idea that I currently have a full-time job. I work for somebody. It is my career. I'm making likely enough income to cover my expenses, and I'm living my life, and I'm doing my thing. I desire to go be a coach, trainer, whatever it is. And how do I know when that moment comes that it's time for me to quit my job and go do this thing full time? My job is getting in the way of what I want, my business growth, something I thoroughly enjoy. We're talking around that kind of pivotal point in time. It's not so much we're quitting a job and starting a brand new business per se. We're doing some coaching on the side, and when are we moving there? That's what we're breaking down today. At least that's my understanding. I don't know, Brandon, Andrew, you guys got a different thought process around that as we ask that question. I know this question was pitched to us, so we're just looking to break it down.
I'll kick it off. But yeah, I think as I've had some friends and I guess even a little bit myself going from a full-time corporate type of position, 9 to 5, and then also having something going on part-time. And it would be cool to go completely from that 9 to 5 to full-time, but there were definitely some risks that I had to take into account personally. And everyone's going to be a little different, especially when it comes to like their financial positions and everything like that. And so when I was working my 9 to 5 job, and I was also doing a lot of DJing at the time, it got to the point where I'm like, if I really wanted to pursue this, I would have to either have a little bit more lockdown, just a little bit more security, because sometimes, when 2020 happened, this happened with a lot of small businesses. And I'll talk on the wedding industry. People had weddings lined up. Co the C word hit, and you lost your whole entire business. Weddings got canceled. If you're working as a personal trainer, gyms closed down, and so if you had decided to take that risk and, probably that if you did, but, there was some financial risk that came with that just because of that unknown. No one expected that to happen. No one projected a huge global shutdown, and that's why I think it's good to make sure that you're in a good financial position, at least having, like, 3 to 6 months of savings just in case, things do go south for you when you are trying to make that transition to go full-time in whatever venture that you're doing because yeah, there's risks. It does sound great, on paper, but there's always gonna be some, you know, you wanna make sure that you have your bills and your mortgage or your rent covered before you decide to take the full plunge. It's kind of like a kiddie pool. Walk in there, take some baby steps, learn how to walk in water before you dive into the 12-footer. Because for me, that's more than double my height. It's a lot of water.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because both of you mentioned, the direction of this specific episode going to people that are transitioning careers, and I think it also warrants some consideration and conversation around the people that are considering doing this as their first career, because there's obviously two very different risk and form factors to probably what people should focus on, and kind of what that ramp looks like. Obviously, when you're young, and just to kind of get this one out of the way from my perspective, when you're young and trying to establish something, and let's be honest, like, you probably have more energy than you do if you're doing a second transition in career, and you probably have a family, and you just want to get out of your job and you want time freedom, and it's really a romanticized profession that people feel like health is something that they can truly grasp and turn into this lucrative side hustle where everyone's promising you that you'll have 120K in your pocket at the end of your first year, which just isn't a reality for the majority of coaches, whether you are coming out of high school or you're younger and you're in your first career, or you're in that second career and you're trying to transition out, because there's just a lot of growing pains, I think, that are present during that type of transition. So now we've just acknowledged that there is going to be another early group, the later group, that it seems to happen around late 20s to like early 40s as the main bucket of individuals that I've seen, the previous education company, certification company, come through the doors. We obviously had people well outside that range, but, trying to figure out what that transition looked like was definitely a challenging and oftentimes a very frustrating one. So just to kind of paint the picture of who we're probably chatting about, whether you fit that bill or not, there are definitely going to be a lot of great talking points and tactical pieces as we navigate this particular conversation today. So, Steve, I'd like to throw it over to you for a second, because obviously you've had some transitions in your own career. Transitioning into the coaching industry, it's probably no different for the majority of it. So what are your thoughts?
So I think, Brandon hits on what is likely or should be the most obvious point, is you need to be in a financial spot to make this transition. I think the idea of I'm going to go from my 9 to 5 employee to just be a trainer or a coach, online, in person, whatever it might be, it is romanticized in the sense of I get to be my own boss and I get to go do something fun and all those pieces. And those absolutely are benefits, but you need to make sure like it's going to work from a financial perspective, because the moment you're financially strapped, you are not going to do the things you need to be doing to be successful. And what I mean by that is you're going to be more worried about selling somebody coaching to pay your bills than you are about solving their problem for them. And that's going to come through, and you're not going to ultimately perform, right? So from a financial perspective, the 3 to 6 month number is just something commonly thrown out there. 100%. Like I think that at minimum, in a good world, you're going to have 3 months worth of expenses just kind of stocked up where you won't lose the roof over your head. Maybe you have to cut back on some of your fun. Maybe you're going to have to eat some cans of tuna. Maybe things are going to get tight, but you're not going to be in the spot where like shit just sucks, right? So number one, make sure that's covered. Now, number two, and arguably the more important thing than number one, is when you do this as a side hustle, it's literally just fun. It's literally just fun. And then, oh, by the way, you get to make some money doing it. You might rely on that money at some point in time, but you're out there and you're hoping to train and coach for, I don't know, 4 hours a day before or after work. Like you might be putting in 15 to 20 hours a week. You're likely not doing more than 20 hours a week. Otherwise you're sacrificing like your own health and all those things. So, but we're doing this and we're doing it in a positive way, half-assed, and things are working. If you go in and whole ass this thing, are you going to be able to have the same success? And what I mean by that is when you go to the gym or when you show up online or you do whatever it is you're doing to acquire clients, when you show up 2 to 3 times more, you're going to burn through your list of people faster. You're going to burn through your audience faster. If you go after your 9 to 5 and go to the gym from 6 to 9 p.m. at night every single day, well, hey, from 6 to 9, you see that audience. Eventually, that audience kind of gets burnt out. And if you're going to go from 12 to 9, I can guarantee you from 12 to 5, there's a lot less people there. But also very quickly, you're going to burn that audience out as well. So how quickly is the gym bringing in new clients? Or how quickly are you getting new followers or listeners on social media, on your podcast, on whatever it is? Those things start to matter. So my thing would be, before you leave the 9 to 5, get on the struggle bus for 60 days and see if you can put 50% more hours in and increase your business by 50%. And if you can do that on the front end, sales, marketing side of things, cool. Checkbox number 1. Checkbox number 2. With you being tired, with you putting more energy into marketing and sales, can you deliver the outcomes to your clients that keep them retained with your business so they buy the second time that you offer them to buy something, and get referrals out of them, which means ultimately they love you so much and the results you're giving them that all of a sudden it makes sense for them to refer a friend to you. And if you can do that, if you can hop on a struggle bus in 60 days, grow your business by 50% and get results and get people to buy the second thing and get referrals, now all of a sudden I would say, hey, if you're going to go and double the amount of time that you're in the gym, online, wherever it is, doing this thing, it's likely or highly likely that you're going to go down this road of actually getting something out of it and being able to replace your income relatively quickly. So get on that struggle bus for 60 days while you still have your 9 to 5, prove it out. If those things aren't working, I would question, should I give up my main source of income? Now, there's the third piece to this, and then I'll shut up, is if you go down that road and you do the things and you grow it by like 45%, not 50%, and this and that, whatever. Okay, there's probably an argument to be made that, hey, you don't have more time, you're tired, you're all the things, and you can't get it there. Makes sense. But if you can only grow it by like 5%, don't tell me you don't have enough time and then think that getting rid of your job is going to make the thing work. If your business is not sound right now and you can't grow it on demand right now, you're not going to be able to get it to where it needs to replace the income that you desire. So that would be my big kind of echoing off your step 1 there, Brandon, which I think is a solid step 1 of step 2 is, are you in control and can you grow the thing? Is it going to replace the income that you're getting rid of? So that's kind of my next piece to add.
Yes, as much as I dislike certain influencers that exist in the space, I believe there's someone that said, and rightfully so, that, and I think there's a lot of truth to this, that you should use your free time to build the dream life that you want, whether that's, I mean, and I think that someone else said, show me how someone spends their leisure time and he'll tell you what kind of future they're likely to have. And this is where, we do run into this time constraint, and that is a very real thing in certain situations, but oftentimes it's because people don't want to give up what they're currently doing to make space for something that they perceive is going to be beneficial for them. So they'd rather be right about their circumstances and situation instead of get out there and start to shift things that might make it a little more uncomfortable. And, I think that you say a lot of great things, in your points there, Steve. And I think that the underarching theme is that you have to take action. And, they say that when you talk about things, you get a hit of dopamine. Well, that hit of dopamine is enough for people that are talkers to delay actually taking action. So this is kind of one of the funny things where you talk about creating an accountability network and talking to people that are in your social circles to support you making that transition. If people historically are fire starters is what I call them, they don't really get it across the finish line. Those people probably should be a little more conservative with what they talk about initially until they get it up and running, versus the people that are a little more reserved and don't want people to know, then those are the people that should share. But I think that, the 60-day sprint thing, I'm a big fan of, because that's where you definitely use that free time. And, and it's not unrealistic to say 10 hours a week is unrealistic. You consider part-time work as 20 hours. The average coach should be able to coach 25 to 35 clients in a high quality setting. So you're telling me that whatever time we're not coaching, we can't spend going out there and prospecting or figuring out. And I think we're going to talk about this in a different episode, but how to actually find the people that are going to be a good fit for our services. And, if you're a little bit lost and you are one of those people that are initially trying to consider, we do have other previous episodes that you're going to want to reference around building a business and what we would do if we were to talk about starting it all over again. But I think one of the most important things for people to consider as they're transitioning is this thing called the student dumb brain. And that's a term that I just coined. So, but it's basically where people think that I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to act and do things willfully ignorant or dumb. And when I say that, it's they put their student hat on instead of their thinking hat on or their teacher hat on or whatever hat that's outside of one, that's using inexperience as an excuse for inaction. And so when I say the stress brain, what I'm referencing is break things down into 1 to 3 skills. This is where a lot of new coaches or people that are transitioning into coaching in general really mistake that. They forget about the fitness components, meaning they don't know how to do assessments. They don't know how to write programs. They don't know how to consult the client. They don't know how to monitor progress. They don't know how to set up the right KPIs, and they don't know how to have these consultations on a recurring fashion with their clients. Then they don't know how to motivate clients from a psychological perspective. They don't know how to build meaningful relationships. And all of these are like larger chunkings of skills that take some time to develop. Now imagine coming into a brand new skill set, and let's say you're stepping into a job you've never performed before, and you have all these things that get dumped in your lap, and they're like, hey, good luck. And by the way, if no one talks to you, like that's just the way it goes. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll just scream into the void here. But I think that that's where a lot of people, when they make that transition, is they don't have the necessary skills to actually deliver the service or the quality of service that would beget them the attention that they think they deserve because they're so passionate about something that is new. And I think that, interest is something that we have to earn. And that means it has to be something that is valued. And I think that that is a critical precursor before people make these large professional transitions that people are so apt to because of certain marketing practices that make it seem like it's a very sexy thing and the industry's booming. And while it is, we definitely want to make sure that we have some longevity stake inside of that by layering in these things and not getting deer in the headlights, overwhelmed, ultimately paralyzed, and then having that take us out from taking action because we try to do 50 things, build the business on top of that, which we didn't even talk about as a skill set. So I would say go slow. That's why we say keep your main thing. Use your passion, use your interest to fuel what skills you're going to accumulate during that developmental period, and give yourself like 6 to 12 months just to fuck around a little bit before you try to find out and go into sink or swim mode. Because it will take you probably close to, I've seen people build a meaningful business in a brick and mortar facility where they didn't have to worry about lead generation in like 6 to 12 months. The average online coach takes a little bit longer than that, especially if they struggle with social media. So I'm a big fan of actually when you talk about making that transition, and I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this one, but like the actual mechanism of how to make that transition. As we talked about
South Andrew came out there for a second with y'all.
Oh yeah. Hey, listen, raise Dale, praise hail. Nope, that's not it. But but like the actual mechanics of making that transition. So have you ever had any instances where you've made a large transition for your own thing?
So, I mean, I'll throw in a little bit of a story actually about a online coach that left their full-time career, a teaching career, like pension, health benefits, things like that. And on the other side of about a year going after this online coaching thing, can barely make ends meet. Business is completely in the dumps. And it's one of those things that happened slowly, very quickly. And it was like a 15-month thing, which on month 1, I saw it. I was like, this is not good. You need to make changes. And no changes were made for 14 more months. And all of a sudden it went from a world where generating $30,000, $40,000 a month to I can't even hit enough to cover my health insurance and pay my mortgage. And it's sad to see that have happened because there was such opportunity. And this person went from, hey, I'm full time and I'm grinding hard on my extra time to make this business work, and the business was working. And then all of a sudden, when the business had to work and proper systems for what they wanted were not in place, and this person had already hit that scale button. They had a team, they had employees, they had other people doing things, and they were not prepared from a leadership, team leader, scaled business perspective with the skill sets that were needed. And this is where I just wish, like, hey, great idea. Take the next 60 days, put 50% more effort in, and see if you get 50% more out. Because I know that litmus test, that would not have passed. That person would not have passed that test. They would have been tired. They would have been really tired for 60 days. But on the end of 60 days, we've been like, you know what? Keep your career, keep your pension, and keep this as your side hustle, and go have some fun and make some extra money and do your thing. And it sucks to see it from the outside. And it's that train wreck that was like, please go fix this. Oh, I'll do it. Why didn't you do it? I couldn't do it. Why? Because I felt bad. Oh, okay. How bad does it feel not to be able to pay your mortgage right now? Just want to ask that question. How bad does it feel that you can't do the things you want to do with and for your family? How bad does that feel? Which one feels less bad? Yeah, having a tough conversation would have felt a lot less bad. I know that. So this is where, can you put in 50% more time and increase the outcome by 50%? That's where this comes into play, and that's the story I'll share. And I just don't want to see somebody else run into that. And I've seen that happen multiple times. You know, hey, I'm going to go sell my car and go all in on this thing. Amazing. You're going to make some money, and you the amount of money you sold your car for, you generated in top line revenue 100%. And then you fell off the fucking cliff, figuratively, because there weren't the systems that had to happen. So with the knowledge you have now, could you have turned 50% more in to 50% more out? Yes. Now I think maybe it might be a good time to go really scrounge and get some of those extra dollars to figure out what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because set the program aside for a moment. Every program has flaws that's out there, 100%. But the actions that have to be taken by people to make it work sometimes are the actual bigger obstacle. And I don't care how easy we ever make it for you. Any information you get from us, any systems, any frameworks, any step-by-step instructions, if you don't do the thing, it doesn't matter. And that's where stuff started to kind of get in the way for these people. And both of those situations, very different situations and very different programs and very different spots in life that they were transitioning from. But nonetheless, it was still, I wish you just took the 50% approach and see if that worked for you. But Andrew, to your question, in terms of any big transition in something, oh yeah.
How to.
Lots of transitions. Lots of big transitions. You know, I think early on it was that ignorance for me. Like, yeah, I'm just going to go do this thing. But I also had a lot less responsibility. I didn't have a child during my first ones that I have to make sure is taken care of. I didn't own a house that I had to make sure was paid for. I wasn't married. I didn't have all these things that are relevant there. So I had the luxury of, to truly survive, I have a phone and a car bill. So I'm willing to take the jump and see what happens. As life has progressed, it's become more of that calculated risk of what is the thing and where is bare minimum? What does break even look like for it to make sense for me to do this thing? And let's call a spade a spade. We all fight working for somebody 40 hours a week so we can go work for ourselves 80 hours a week, right? I think that's the fun saying we see. You got to love what you're doing as well. And there's phases in life that come along with it. So the actual how to, financial independence in the sense of, can I survive the storm of what this is going to look like over the next period of time that I think it'll take to get there? Do I know I have the ability to create the outcomes that I want to create? And what's important for me during this transition. At this point in life, I want to work with people and own businesses with people that I love spending my time with. 15 years ago is I just need the fastest way to go get some more money because I got to go out and party on Friday night and pay for my car. So things change, and make sure you have those priorities kind of really spelled out for yourself.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback off that too, you're kind of touching on it. It is a big mindset shift because when you do work your 9 to 5, you don't necessarily need that discipline. You go in, you clock in. Okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm being told to do from 9 to 5. Once 5 hits, I'm done. I can either relax, work on my thing, go to happy hour, whatever it may be. When you don't have those, that external guidance for you to tell you what to do, it really starts to, that's a skill set in itself. It's just time management and that self-discipline. Because now it's like, all right, well, what time am I going to wake up today? Okay, well, what am I going to do during this day? Normally I was doing this when I was working. And I think that's another big thing that people don't necessarily take into account, is that now you are responsible for yourself, and making sure that you are prioritizing what you need to get done in order to make this work. Otherwise, that already itself, if it's like you don't have that self-discipline, probably not likely that you're going to succeed if you're not able to commit to yourself. So yeah, just wanted to kind of throw that to the listeners. Hopefully that wasn't too intense.
No, I think it was right on the nose, and I think that you allude to something that is very important when it comes to managing that time, and it's to find a good rhythm. And I think that there are things that people have to anchor into their schedule. What time are you always going to eat? What time are you always going to have these things that you're going to have to do anyway? And then scheduling those things, scheduling some time. What time are you going to be on socials? If you're going to go that route, what time are you going to door knock? If you're going to go down that route, strongly not encourage that one. But I mean, these are these.
My first business, I walked blocks and miles hanging up door hangers on people's front door to open that thing. So is it, you know what, I actually will say it is a great way to generate leads and interest when you're doing something on more of an in-person situation. Because it did work very well. But I remember, dude, in some of these towns, it's like a half a mile from door to door. And I'm like, man, they got money, but it's a long walk door to door. So the doors per hour got really, really low at certain points.
Doors per hour. If you haven't heard that, chances are you answer your phone like this.
DPH,
not this. So, but no, again, to kind of close the loop on that one, finding a good rhythm, waking up at the same time, holding yourself accountable to that stuff, because if you don't, your freedom will strangle you. And I think that a lot of people run into this, like, I can do everything, I can do anything. And they spend time on the most inane things. If they spend time getting out of bed whatsoever, and without that productive feeling of making progress, you are going to fuck yourself mentally. You have to find little things to accomplish every day. And I usually say no more than 2 to 3 things, oddly enough. You do that, you're going to be in it for the long run. You try to do 50 fucking things in one day, you're going to get crushed. And you're going to start to set this thing that's called psychological momentum, and it goes positively or negatively. And when you start things that are called stacking wins, or looking for the achievements that you can, kind of attend to during your day, check them off. If you're a box checker, if you're an ADHD neurodivergent, I'm sorry, you'll just feel less anxious when you do these things. You won't get the same satisfaction, but having those things every day. Did you talk to people? Generally speaking, is something you're going to have to do. Did you generate value? Did you write a program? If you focus on those 3 things every day, you're probably going to be okay for the long run. But mechanically speaking, kind of to answer my own question that I presented to the group, is that I like to suggest something called the caterpillar method, which, if you kind of picture a caterpillar, they scrunch up, they stretch out, they scrunch up, they stretch out. And so part of that is you got to get proof of concept. So you got to start coaching, whether it's for free, whether it's for fees. That's going to be on you. That's a different episode that we do mention something along those lines. But you start small, you get bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, when you're looking at somewhere between 5 to 15 clients, you probably want to start planning around 5. You want to start figuring out the tactical timeline of what to do with your other job when you're around 10 clients, depending on what your charge rate is and what your monthly nut is. And then around 15, you want to start to look to pull the plug. in my experience, because going from 0 to 15 is going to be exorbitantly more hard and challenging than going from 15 to 25. It's a weird thing once you go above 25, then that's kind of depending upon what your engine looks like for growth. You're going to run into some obstacles, but if you stick with it and you keep your 3 things, you avoid creative and solving those problems. So in order to go from 15 capacity, start a wait list, tell people you're going to that didn't exist yet. They would actually, I think, collect payments on it, and they would see what people would order. And when people would buy enough of it, they'd be like, okay, cool, this is a great product. We're actually going to build this one. I'm like, that's fucking crazy because it doesn't exist yet. It seems really unethical. However, if you're also just like, at some point, you're going to lose a client, the pre-sell list eventually turns into your waiting list. You just feed back into your 10 clients. And most people can handle 10 clients pretty easily, right? So mechanically, Caterpillar method, add 2 at a time, add 1 at a time. 12 months later, you got a full roster. Again, hence the 12 months. And then pre-sell after that. Great time of year to do that is coming up, is going to be in January, is probably actually going to be closer to the beginning of November, starting creating some problem awareness that you can then offer a solution and makes a logical purchase decision. So mechanically, that's how I would, if I were going to transition out of a regular 9 to 5 into a coaching thing full time and I didn't love teaching so much, probably how I go about it. Boys, how would you guys go about it? Digital product.
Step 1 for me would be going out and, assuming I'm starting from scratch, I want to get out of my 9 to 5. I like this whole gym, fitness, coaching, nutrition thing. I would go out and find 2 or 3 people, coach them for free for 2 months. And I would really drive high compliance. If they weren't doing the thing that they were supposed to be doing, I'd get them the hell out and I'd get one more new person in there. And it's like, hey, you either listen and do the thing or you're out for those first 2 or 3 people, and try to drive just some good results. So I get testimonials, I could put things out there. Soon as I achieved more than one good result and more than one testimonial with these people, I would then ask them for a referral of somebody. And I would then look to basically say, hey, at 60 days, this is obviously done. Are you interested in continuing? My normal rate is going to be whatever, but because you started with me early on, I will 100% give you like half off. Make it really stupid, cheap, no brainer for them to just continue. Starts to get me selling some things, and potentially the brand new leads that I get from the referrals would be just easy closes, build my selling confidence. Now, let's say I got 3 people through that. Let's hope one of them ended up renewing, and I ended up getting one person that was a referral that signed up. So I actually have 2 people on my roster now. I would then go out and try to grow to probably that 10 range, selling at a 20 to 30% below what I'm hoping to collect on a monthly value. So for every $100, shave off $25 ish. And grow to 10. Once I get to 10, I then start layering in people at the price that I actually wanted to charge and going from there. Marketing is going to be really heavy on my referrals. How do I get that? How do I get that after I get some people some wins? And then from there, just going to create some great connections, build those relationships and have those conversations and grow it, whether it's going to be on social media or in person. But those would be my steps that I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think really the having some sort of social proof is really going to be the, way to, in order to get sales. Because if you're listening to this, you've probably seen this as well. A social media post, I'll help you lose X amount of weight in 30 days. And I'm like, well, who are you? There's nothing on your page. It's just you working out, or, you claiming to say you helped people, but it's, I don't see anything. How am I supposed to know that you can help me? And so, yeah, really going out, charging. I don't know if I would go free completely right off the bat. And I guess though that also depends.
You have to like my way, Brandon, or else.
And I mean,
WTF. There's only one way to be successful, damn it.
Yeah, okay. And for me though, and it's also more so for the client itself, when they have a little bit more invested, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, like 50 to $100. They have a little bit more skin in the game, and that'll allow for a little bit better compliance from what I've experienced. And so pretty much besides that aspect of going out and finding them for free, find someone that needs help, see if you're able to, see if you're a good match too. Because if they're like, hey, I got Crohn's disease and I'm diabetic and I'm about to get my leg amputated, and you're like, I can help you through that. Like, I don't know. Maybe find someone a little easier so that you can help them out with, because otherwise now you're going to get referrals or reviews, but not the best reviews. So, stay in your, what you feel comfortable doing. But yeah, really would go the same route as Steve though. Find clients that are super compliant that you're able to help, and that you may, try out different types of people you wouldn't necessarily work with. I remember when I started off doing this method, I wanted to work with athletes and people that went to the gym, and that was kind of like, okay, well, I like doing that, and I played sports, and I really like this. And then I worked with some athletes, and I was like, ooh, really high maintenance people. I don't know. And then I was like, oh, I would like to work with bodybuilders. And I was like, oh, actually, maybe not. Very, there's a personality type there. And I was like, not necessarily what I thought. And so, it allows you to also kind of see what you like to do and what you don't like to do. If you're like, oh, I actually like really working with single dads, who would have thunk? Okay, cool. Maybe that's the direction to go. And, if trial and error, you'll know what you like by the time hopefully you're at like your 5th or 10th client. And yeah, referrals though, I'm all about referrals. I really think that is the best way to, get clients. Personally, I'm biased, but social media is, sprinkle that in there here and there. I also personally don't know how to use ads on Facebook or Instagram, so that's also why I'm biased towards referrals. Like, yeah, I'll give you a discount, just refer me. But yeah, pretty much on the same lane as Steve, besides charging free at the start, me personally.
I'm down with it.
Different strokes.
There's more than one way. There is always more than one way.
Yeah, I mean, some are just wrong, but that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brandon's way is wrong, but I mean, sometimes.
Yeah, don't ask for money when you're trying to start up a business.
No, but I mean, it is something that's worthwhile discussion, quickly here is there is more than one way. And the things that make somebody great are also going to be kind of, how do I phrase this? The opposite of the things that make them bad. And all of us have good and bad qualities. It is what it is. But my goods outweigh my bads. My goods are opposite of my bads in a sense. The things that I'm good at make the bads not really matter. When you go out and you do certain things in a certain way that fits for you, you got to run with that because it's what makes sense for you. It plays to your strengths, which are going to be different than mine or Brandon's or Andrew's. So we have to do that. I do agree with you, Brandon. At the end of the day, somebody who pays something will be more committed, and there's likely a higher likelihood that they're going to be compliant. But that's also where, you know what? I'm going to play the volume game and go as quick as possible. If I said, hey, what 3 people want this thing for free? I know I'm starting tomorrow. If you're selling people something, you might be starting by the end of the week. And that's also why the moment you're not compliant, I'll throw you the heck out because I know it's going to happen. Again, not wrong or right. I'm just going to play it differently. Me and you, Brandon, I'm likely the person that's willing to have a hard conversation way sooner in any relationship than
what are you. What are you saying, Steve?
There's a lot of stuff I'm saying. But
some of us are bred for conflict, Brandon, and others of us are just maybe a little less apt for it. That's all.
Yeah. I avoid conflict at all costs. So no, but I think, there's no perfect way. Those are the ways that we would do it. And you have to do what's going to fit well for you and what's going to sit the right way with how you like to operate.
Yeah. Well, and as an aside, I think that when we talk about, Brandon's method of not doing things for free, and Steve and I, suggesting that freemium is probably a good way to go in the service industry because you demonstration asset, right? But even and I think Steve mentioned something that's gold here, in that as you do take on free clients, if you elect to go that route, or even as you're taking on your first couple, you're obviously not going to charge what you would as a veteran, mature coach, right? As someone that's settled into their craft. And I think it's really important to understand that as you churn clients or as you lose them, you replace them with better clients, people that are either willing to pay you more or people that are more willing to do the things. And ultimately, you're trying to increase your sense of success or your chances of success by aligning what they value with what you value as individuals, as some people that are sharing this journey. And that's kind of hard to do initially when you're trying to just gain anyone to be like, well, what do I think about this myself? And so I would be less picky in the beginning, knowing that these people are going to be short term, unless you're just a rock star coach, what does happen on a rare occasion that people just keep clients and never have people leave, in which case you're probably too personable and not technical enough. So there's probably something to be coached up around that. But, don't be afraid to lose clients. I say that most people don't know who they don't want to work with, not even who they love, but who they just want to avoid until they've lost 20 clients. Once you lose 50, you usually have a pretty good idea of who you like to have on your roster at that point, in my experience, and having, coached 50 to 60 trainers at Lifetime to build their own dream roster. So that's kind of where I come from with that. And I think it is important that as we wrap up here to disclose to the audience, like, why maybe some of our perspectives arise the way that they did. And for me, I've always been a brick and mortar coach, whether that was, as a strength conditioning coach, as a training manager at Lifetime, like, I have different experiences that value and help me skew towards the way of technical competency and being great in your craft and using that to build a business. Steve, I know that you've had a lot of marketing background. Like, you want to share what your biases are and maybe give some people some coloring and context as to why you believe and you set out the mechanics that you did earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I started my career in a big box gym as a trainer in the fitness world, actually as front desk, eventually becoming a trainer. Then I grew to owning my own personal training studios as well as some massage studios. Then I left that space to do kind of consulting in the online coaching world and health and wellness, and started to engage in that service delivery and that sales. The bridge there really was, I had to learn marketing for myself in the late 20 teens, and online became not a scary place because in 2015, zero idea how to make that happen, especially as somebody who likes the in-person relationship conversation building.
Yeah.
So as I've transitioned through and I think through historically what I've done, like, some of my biggest and best performing marketing campaigns were get 6 free sessions when you buy 36 sessions, right? For the in-person brick and mortar stuff. So I'm going to give you some free sessions, and then, when you buy these ones. So that free thing is always appealing to people as long as it makes sense. Online, there's so much competition out there today. There's so many people that think they're great coaches in many different aspects of coaching. So how am I going to get somebody to come in? Yeah, I'm going to give them something for free or stupidly cheap that just makes sense and create the buy-in, kind of like you said, Brandon. But that's where mine, I would say, is born from.
Brandon, how about you? Where does your bias or your skew kind of come in?
Yeah, and I think it's my bias. Again, I have a little bit more of a background in the clinical side of things, going through the dietetics side, and so I think that's where I kind of gravitate towards that a little bit more now, just because I've learned about it. I feel more comfortable with it, and I feel like there is also a need for that now more than ever, especially with just levels of heart stuff, being overweight, and diabetics, just growing at such a exponential rate. And so that, I think, is just, I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's, I guess, again, where my like to gravitate a little bit towards. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if
Well,
that's.
I guess to clarify, you obviously have established a business, and that when we talk about rolling from a full-time employment to an entrepreneurial mindset, Like, where does your perspective of charging, like, for instance, where would that come
Oh,
from
yeah.
with
Yeah,
your
yeah.
entrepreneurial background?
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so I think it's a really bad answer. This is going to be a really bad answer. I have actually never set my own rates ever for anything in any type of business venture I've done. It's always been set for me. So even nutrition coaching, it was like, yeah, I'll be willing to pay you this. I'm like, okay, let's go with that. That's my new rate. Same thing with DJing. I remember charging $50 for my first event, and I was like, okay. And then someone's like, hey, when you want to DJ this event? And I was like, sure. And they're like, this is our budget. And I was like, okay, I guess that's how much I'm getting paid. And that's just kind of, I've never been like, yeah, I think it's time to raise it. It's just, this is the highest bidder. Now they set the new rate. And so that's where I'm like, all right, well, I guess this sets the standard now. And again, that's where I came off with even the nutrition coaching. Because when people reach out, there's never been a conversation where it's like, how can we get, and again, people come to me. I rarely have ever talked to anyone. I guess I've done some cold DMs before, but that was more for just like a nonprofit type stuff, and essentially I guess it would be my advertising because I'm getting my name out there. But yeah, and that's with my nutrition coaching. People have always come to me, and so they're like, "I'll pay you this." I'm like, "Okay." So here we go. So that's from at least a pricing bias. It's, I guess, a good problem to have ran into. I'm still trying to figure out how much to charge. And I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of
okay,
what.
Brandon. We got you. We won't tell you to do it for free either because there's a proof of concept, buddy. But, and I think that just so everyone can wrap their brain around picking out the concise things of like, I start brick and mortar, built an audience. Steve had his own facilities that he had to find an audience for, which is why he skews towards the marketing and sales side. And Brandon has just caterpillared his beautiful way up into increasing his rates. And that's exactly, kind of a prime example of what it looks like to have a business that slowly grows unsuspectingly until one day, he's flying across the country to go and, do these amazing events. And, universities are hiring him everywhere. So I think that's a pretty good transitional episode here for people that are looking to transition. You guys got any closing remarks as we wrap up?
Pick the plan, pick the lane, and go execute the thing. There is no right or wrong way. If you can't put in more effort and get out an increased similar amount of outcome, so 50% more work, 50% more income, I guess I should say, I don't think the time is right. And don't increase by 5% and say that's enough. Test the limits, get a little tired, and make sure it works. Otherwise, it might not be time yet. That's what I hope you really take away from the things that I've shared today, because I don't want to see you stuck in a bad position.
Brandon?
Fail to plan to fail.
Ooh.
Boom.
I love it. Yeah, for me, it's just get started, pay attention, and ask for help. And if you don't know where to ask for help, we have all types of stuff going on here at Beyond the Pump. I'm sure that if you reach out to one of us, we can hook you up with the nearest, dearest training relevant to whatever it is that you're looking for, because we do weekly educational events. So if you ever want to hop in on those, please reach out. You're only stuck if you don't ask for help. And if you don't know how to navigate this conversation in general, and you want to learn some more stuff, we even have a continuing education platform that has these little things that you can go in there and consume on your own pace. So with all that to say, make sure you do what, guys?
Subscribe, rate, review, and share.
And share.
Thumbs up button. Thumbs up button.
Thumbs up.
Only
Show
if you liked it. Thumbs up if you liked it.
Thumbs up if you liked it, FTC. You hear that? We're not soliciting. But again, thank you so much for being here. Until next time, share this with your loved ones and the people you think would benefit. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you later.